Vivimos en tiempos virtuales, con redes digitales, a través de redes sociales nos comunicamos con otros, estamos en estudios virtuales y parece que esta realidad nos ha permeado de forma muy profunda y hablamos mucho de cuánto nos afecta, pero hablamos poco de cómo la podríamos realmente usar a nuestro favor. Hoy estamos con Adam Gazzaley, uno de los expositores de Congreso Futuro 2025, neurocientífico, emprendedor estadounidense conocido por sus distintas investigaciones que han salido en las revistas más importantes del mundo en el campo de la neurociencia cognitiva y por el desarrollo de nuevas tecnologías que permitan mejorar las funciones cerebrales en situaciones en las que entendemos que la tecnología está afectando nuestras funciones cerebrales. So, thank you very much for being with us, Adam. And I want to start, because here in Futuro, we talk a lot about technology, and we are very afraid of it, right nowadays, because of the knowledge we have now about the effects of technology, particularly about social media and, I don't know, cell phones in children's, and now we are very worried about it. So my first question is, what do you think about technology? Do you think it's making us better or worse?
It's a great question, a complicated one, as these types of questions always are, because it's not one-sided. I am someone that loves technology. I'm an early adopter to almost all the new things, but as a neuroscientist studying how our brains process information, how we manage distraction and multitasking, I am very concerned. I see the shortening of our attention span, how we're constantly asking people to switch between different focus points so rapidly that I think it's a great challenge, especially for young, developing minds. So all in all, I'd say that a lot of the promise and hope we had for information technology, such as social media, for example, to really connect us and help educate us and inform us, has really gone the opposite direction. So I also share a lot of your concerns.
But you work developing new technologies, specifically video games, to help people to recover mental abilities. Can you explain us what do you do and how it works in what kind of people?
Yeah, so after years of studying how technology can challenge the brain, I became sort of disillusioned with that topic. I wanted to not just report the bad news, but do something to help the brain. And the reality is technology is not going, the genie's not going back in the bottle. It is here. And it's impossible, or almost impossible, to deny your children of any technology. It's just all around us. So I became very motivated in how do we turn this around and use this as a tool that actually enhances what makes us human as opposed to diminish us. And as I always say, everything cuts both ways, all technologies, all tools. Like fire could cook your food or burn your house down, right? Like everything goes both ways. So how do we think about technology as a way of delivering high-level, targeted experiences that help improve our brain function? And it's really based on the principle that experience drives our brain's plasticity. It's how we learn. It's part of school or therapy. It's how we develop our brain. So if we can use technology to deliver experiences in a very intentional way, and then do research to understand, is it actually beneficial and in whom, then we start advancing technology along a different pathway. And what I think of this is experience as medicine, experiential medicine. Technology is a delivery tool that can bring people experiences, change their brain, and help improve their function.
Yeah, and you did a video game.
Yes.
And it works for people.
Yes.
And what's the video game about?
Yeah, so we have...
It's like a Mario Bros thing, or what?
It's actually not dissimilar from Mario Brothers. Like we have many video games in my university and my center called Neuroscape. The one that has gone the furthest out into the world is a game called Neuraracer that became now a game called Endeavor, and it has a 16-year life already. And this game was designed, inspired by my research on how might you challenge the brain in such a way to improve attention abilities, as opposed to diminish attention, go the opposite direction. And so the game is specially formulated, it looks like a normal video game, but it's specially formulated and challenging and rewarding in such a way that it improves attention and doesn't diminish it.
Can you tell me a scene of this video game?
Yeah, so if you were playing it, you would be an alien moving through a distant world on like a sort of hovercraft, and you have to avoid different targets and collect different alien specimens and avoid others. And so what it's doing is it's challenging you to move your attention rapidly, to resist distraction, and to make rapid decisions.
But it looks like a common video game.
It does. But
why this helps and the other doesn't?
Well, that is a good point, and I'm glad we could touch on that. Those other video games actually do help as well.
Oh,
yes. Yeah, so there is a scientific literature showing that even consumer entertainment games that challenge your working memory, your very short-term memory, and your ability to ignore distractions and get rewards does improve cognition in young people that play those games.
All video games do that for us?
Well, video games are so different.
Yeah, I know.
So, but those action, fast-paced video games tend to. So we were actually inspired by that work and said, well, okay, they're doing it by accident. And there's also other things that are complicated. They're often violent.
Why did you do it intentionally?
We did it intentionally. We have what we call a closed loop system. That means that the game is constantly monitoring your performance and changing the challenges of rewards in a very personalized manner. We call these closed loop video games.
Does it have artificial intelligence or machine learning?
It's a not sophisticated one, but it's called a staircase adaptive algorithm. So it is a type of intelligence. We are advancing that now. So it learns you. The game learns you and learns how to challenge you in a very specific way to your abilities.
What kind of people do this? And what kind of changes you see in what kind of people?
Yeah, so we develop the technology, and then we do randomized control trials with control groups, everything, to understand how it works and who it works in. So our first big paper was in the journal Nature. Great.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so
that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, so that study was on older adults, healthy older adults, 60 to 85 years old. And what it showed was that they improve how they play the game, which is not so surprising, but still that is a type of plasticity.
Yeah, but they usually don't play this kind of games.
They normally do not. And they get better at it, but what's most important and why it wound up in Nature is that they also get better at other tasks that involve attention and memory. So we call that a transfer of benefit. So you play the game, you get better at the game, but you also have better attention outside of the game. And that's what we showed. And we also recorded brain activity while they were playing the game to show what is changing in their brain that leads to these benefits. And so that was our first study that we're like, wow, we designed something quite unique, a video game that improves attention. And now there's been dozens of studies in different populations, children with ADHD, autism, adults with depression, multiple sclerosis, lupus, COVID, early dementia. It helps attention across all these different populations.
So do you work on trying to do some video games to help our children and our young people that is really suffering because of the effects of social media and telephones and everything?
Yeah, so our data would suggest that, and right now we have our game approved by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration in the United States, as a medical treatment for ADHD in children. So as opposed to stimulants, which are the main treatment now prescribed by doctors, a doctor could prescribe our video game based on the data. It took years to go through the FDA and present our data to convince them that this should be considered a medicine. And so it is a treatment, and now children, teens, and even adults for ADHD. And the data I find quite convincing, and the FDA did as well, that it improves attention ability. So it's an alternative to taking a drug, a stimulant. As a young person, I think it's important.
Yeah, I'm thinking on doing some reverse mathematics on what have we done with the young people, because I don't know if in probably it's the same, but in Chile we have terrible rates are suicidal thoughts in young people, a lot of problems on self-esteem, a lot of raises in terms of depression. anxiety. So what do we do to do the same, but for good, you know?
Yeah, so we have data from this particular game that it actually helps depression as well. Most of those studies are in adults with depression, but because attention is part of emotional regulation, it helps with depressive symptoms. We have not studied that as much in children, but we have other games. That's just one game we created that has gone the furthest out into the world. But we have some games that are eyes closed games that are built on meditation principles.
Okay.
We have other games that are in virtual reality where you do rhythm and dance. So we take experiences that have benefits in the real world, like music and dance and meditation, physical exercise, and then we bring them into gameplay to make them more accessible and fun, and then we do the research to show that they could have benefits. So it's helping with childhood depression and suicide and adolescent mental health is so critically important. And it doesn't mean, and I always like to be very cautious about this, that this is like some holy grail, like, getting your kids out in nature, having them interact with each other. That's critically important. I have little kids as well. But this is just another way that we could have a solution using the same type of technology that has caused so much trouble.
Yeah, I was thinking on that question too, because you produce your own humans. You
yes,
have two.
I have two daughters.
and they are really young.
Yes.
They are really little. And I don't know if this is true, but everybody says like Mark Zuckerberg doesn't let them use technology when they are really little. Do you? And what do you think we should do to protect the brain of little people?
Yeah, I think Steve Jobs is also famous for having not exposed his kids to technology. So this is outside of my expertise as a scientist. So this is now as a dad, as a dad that's done research on this.
And we want to protect our children.
Yeah,
that's
of
something
course.
we do as fathers
100%.
or mothers. You know?
So I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old daughter, and the 1-year-old has no exposure at all. The 4-year-old does, and I am a strong believer that it's impossible to deny them this completely. So I would rather be there as a companion as she discovers the world of digital technologies and help her as best I can, rather than pretending she's not going to be exposed to it, because I don't believe that is even possible. When she's even in school, they use technology. So my approach is, first of all, intentionality. So when she uses a screen, it has a purpose. It's not the default. It's like she knows she's using it.
Not when she doesn't want to eat, or when she's like in a bad mood.
Exactly. It has an intention.
Because that's very dangerous. I mean,
100%.
If you give a kid, please let us.
I agree. Yes.
Help me to understand
Yes.
this, because when you give a kid, when she or he is having a bad time, and you give them a phone, you're doing something in their brain that is terrible. Can you explain it?
Well, I think that you create associations, right? And our brains are great at associations. That's like the cornerstone of our memory and even emotional tagging. And so if you build those associations that this is the way that you escape from pain or suffering in any way, it's going to be the root to that. So you would rather offer it at more stable times and happier times, so it's not an escape. So we don't use it for escapism, my daughter and I tend to be with her when she uses it. Certainly, like at breakfast, she'll play some games that I think have value from looking at them.
You choose the games. You don't let her to choose.
I choose, and then we often do them together or next to each other. And so she has questions, and so I feel like here and also it's time limited. Time limitations also, I think, are very important. So intentions, doing it together, and having time limitations. So she only does this in the morning. She doesn't do it in the afternoon or evening, and she doesn't even ask. We read books at night. And so it's just another form of media, like a book, and it should be done intentionally and have a time and a limitation. And so we treat it that way. And hopefully we're building the strategies and the practices and even the habits that then she will engage with this in a healthier way throughout her life.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing for parents. And when you start using that drug, to take it out is super hard. And you can see children like fighting, very hurtful, with trying to not feel this, but because it's kind of a monster inside sometimes, depending on how you treat it. So I would like to, it's interesting that your company name is Neuroscape, because you are trying to neuroconnect us, not to escape or recover or return you know?
So Neuroscape, it's actually a center at the university. So it's from landscape.
But I think it's interesting.
It is. I never actually thought of it that way. It's definitely not escape, but I see where that goes.
It's interesting to imagine from the language or the names, how could we build a world where we really reconnect, recover some things that we think are very useful and important for humanity 100%. And for people. So I'm interested on that. What do you think about technology now? And let's jump for 15 years in the future, and how adults and big adults, I mean elderly people, could be part of this civilization, because now we have a society where they are not really part of it because they don't understand a cell phone either, you know. So
I think it's a big concern of mine as a scientist and as a dad, especially with the emergence of AI and all the complexities that will lead to, and virtual environments. And I work with all these tools, but they're challenging. These can, without careful thought and monitoring, it could go dangerously awry. And I think we have to be very cognizant that we shouldn't be building things just because we can. We should build them because they enhance us as humans in some way. And I think that when we do not pay attention to that, that's when we get in the most trouble. We have to constantly go back to, why are we creating these technologies? Not to offload us necessarily, but to enhance us, and to even give us the capacity to connect with each other more. So I feel we have not done a great job with that. We've built things just because they were cool and we could, and then we wind up in a lot of trouble. So I'm hoping that in this next stage, which will involve a lot of virtual environments and AI, so it will get more and more complicated and have more of a tendency to allow people to escape, that we're very cognizant of the fact that we do not want us to go away from each other and away from our core and away from nature. And that it shouldn't be used all the time, and it shouldn't be a way to just disconnect all day long. We have to constantly return to our intentions of why we're building this technology in the first place.
How do you feel about this? This is explosion the last 2 years of artificial intelligence. Is not just in your laboratories, everywhere. Your children could be talking to one of those, you know? So how do you feel about these, and what do you think are the questions we are not doing now that are important?
That's a great point, and I don't have all the answers. I feel excited and nervous about the technology at the same time. I think a lot of people do. I mean, it's exciting when ChatGPT exploded and you're like, wow, that was a pretty sophisticated answer, and it was fast. And so, you know,
more than me. Sometimes.
And then totally weird at other times, and completely inaccurate at other times. So, you know, we're at the very beginning days, and I expect that over the next 5 years it'll get more and more accurate and more targeted to you and what your interests are. So I expect that to improve. I feel the access to real expertise is incredible. And being able to not necessarily, this is such a big topic, we don't have to go everywhere, but its impact on job industry and so many people that currently occupy positions that will be threatened by AI is very real. But I think about more from the perspective, maybe as a father, of having yet another gateway to take us away from being with one another and being with nature. I care about those things immensely, even though I build technologies as medical tools. And I worry that and I also work on virtual reality, which is yet another place that you can be lost from the real world. So I feel that if we're not really really cognizant of what we're building and monitor it, and as I said, do it with intentionality, it can go really bad.
Totally. And the people that you are now hiring in your studies, they also will be replaced, because nowadays we know that specifically artificial intelligence now has a lot of abilities for mathematics and programming, and that's really fast, and it's happening now.
For sure.
So what kind of abilities would you recommend to young people or your children to have for the future in the curve you're seeing how world is evolving?
Yeah, what a great question. I mean, I used to say programming.
Yeah, that's why I'm telling you.
I remember not even that long ago, because programming in my world in neuroscience is a really amazing asset, because a lot of people do not have it. And so the work that we do, where you build environments to change the brain, if you come in with programming skills, you have a very unique talent. But as you mentioned, that the programming of software will be increasingly threatened by AI. I would say that creativity is still, hopefully, for a long time,
until now,
it's still an area that if you develop your own creative style, your ability to integrate across different fields, like we bring in art and music and story and neuroscience and psychology, integrating across all those fields to create something new, which is what we do. Hopefully it'll be a domain for human leadership for a long time to come.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. I would like it to be.
No, I think you're going to live for that for a long time.
I think that is a place that we will continue to have dominance for a while. But, you know, it is concerning as you continue to offload all of these even high-level positions that humans are doing right now. Like, what do we do? You know, it really begs that question.
Well, that's a profound question, and maybe we are not doing, and we are developing this that is replacing us, and it's going to take us to the abysm of our existence.
Yeah, and it even begs the question of, do we really want to replace us? You know, like, that's what I was trying to say. It's like so many smart people are driven by their curiosity and their abilities, not asking the question of, do we want this? Is this going to make being human better or not? Like, we should be asking those questions before building anything. Of course. But we don't.
No, we don't.
I've been with advisor to many companies, including those that I created, and you know, we often just don't ask that fundamental question: is this something that is going to enhance us as humans or diminish us?
I completely agree. Thank you for being with us, Adam.
Thanks for having me.